You heard the Morning Schmo, Mr. Schmo and their schmoes, but they weren't done. They have this guy, Willie Geist. I don't know what the hell this guy does. He's the nerd of nerds. He's the nerd of nerds. And so, here he goes. Cut 8, go.
It is sound and fury, but it is resonating with a lot of people, I think, because Donald Trump is laying the groundwork. He's laying out the predicate for when the Mueller investigation is complete. When he presents his findings, Donald Trump will be able to point to a certain segment of the population and say, forget everything you're reading right now. Remember, he's corrupt. Remember everything I told you that it was unconstitutional. Remember what I told you that I have the right to do this, that, and that. I'm above the law. That's what he's doing.
Whoa. Did Trump say he's above the law? Trump is not above the law. It's Mr. Mueller who's above the law. See, this is how perverse this has gotten. When I brought up the fact that the president can't be indicted according to the Department of Justice, now they're saying he's above the law. That's the position of the Department of Justice. It hasn't changed in nearly half a century. When I said, yes, the president of the United States can pardon himself, there's nothing in the Constitution that prevents it. I don't know how a court will rule, but I know that to be the case. Then they say he's above the law. He's not above the law. It's the pardon power. It's plenary. It's very broad. Then when I point out that Mr. Mueller's appointment, not every single special counsel, but this special counsel's appointment violates the appointments clause of the Constitution, Professor Calabresi made an overwhelmingly and compelling case, and I've elaborated on it. I've expanded from there, but it's superb. And he points that out. Then it's the president keeps saying he's above the law. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Constitution. The Constitution is supposed to protect, depending on the individual, depending on the institution, from the mob. And right now we're dealing with the mob. The media mob, the Democrat mob, some Republican mob, the leftist mob. It's a mob. And the Constitution is there to protect our rights, to protect certain institutions, and in addition, to protect the presidency. The President of the United States is not the one violating the Constitution or threatening to violate the Constitution. Go ahead.
The case, but generally to be able to tar what comes out of the investigation. And Jeremy, on this question of whether or not the investigation itself is constitutional, this is a theory that we've heard. First time the president said it was yesterday in that tweet that the Mueller investigation itself is, quote, unconstitutional. But on talk radio, they've been making this case since the beginning.
No. On talk radio, they haven't been making this case. I've been making this case on talk radio. So they'll mention names of terrorists. They'll mention names of mass murders. But they're banned from mentioning my name. I don't really care. But I'm the one who raised this. I'm the one who brought Calabresi on here. He's the one who sent me his opinion, and we adjusted it, so on and so forth. We know that. So it's not just it's raised on talk radio. It's raised by people who know the Constitution. Joe Scarborough never worked at the Department of Justice, let alone chief of staff to an attorney general. He was too stupid. Listen to the guy. He sounds stupid because he is stupid. Willie Geist. I don't know who the hell is Willie Geist. Oh, there's Willie Geist. What was he, a librarian? No, nothing against librarians, but what does he have to add to this? And then we're going to Jeremy Bash. I ask, who the hell is Jeremy Bash? Do you know, Mr. Producer? Is he some homeless guy they dragged off the street with John Heilman? You know, Joe, you're a country lawyer, but, you know, you had an inadequate legal training because, you see, there's two parallel constitutions. That John Heilman, but I'll tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, let's have a hand for John Heilman. Yeah. Go ahead.
Of Robert Mueller. We saw an op-ed in May, actually, in the Wall Street Journal that made this case, and that not that all special counsels are unconstitutional, but the argument goes that this one is because the powers that Bob Mueller has assumed are so broad. Do you see any?
By the way, that was on my radio show yesterday and on Hannity last night. So these guys are like stalkers, aren't they, Rich? Okay, listen to Levin, because he's been trashing us. We got to get a clip on, what's his name, talk radio there, that talk radio guy. Joe Scarborough isn't a talk radio guy, because he failed at talk radio. He really isn't a TV guy, because he has 12 viewers. I have a Sunday show, on Fox at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, that has a much larger audience than Joe Scarborough's show, in primetime morning slots. Man, I don't have Willie Geist to be on my show. And John Heilman. Can't wait to hear this Jeremy Bash guy. Go ahead.
Any significance? Do you give any credence to that argument?
No, and it's really a silly argument, Willie, and it's one that's been swatted away by the federal judges in the Manafort case.
No. Who is this Jeremy Bash? This issue was not raised with the federal judge in Washington, D.C. First of all, she's not the judge that would be relevant to this particular issue. But even if it's swatted away by a federal district judge, so what? The ultimate decision in this, from the judicial perspective, would be whom? What? The Supreme Court and at least 5 justices. I don't know how they would rule, but it's not a silly argument. It has been swatted away. Jeremy, if that is your name. Go ahead with Jeremy.
Frivolous motions, in my view, from Manafort's lawyers saying basically that Bob Mueller has no authority to investigate Paul Manafort.
This is the stupidity that is burped up on the Morning Schmo. The lawyer sits there like a baked potato and just listens to this. The issues raised in the Eastern District in the Rocket Docket of Virginia to Judge Thomas Ellis III. And I don't know, we'll see what he does if he was just full of it. Had nothing to do with the appointments clause. They were arguing the scope of the appointment, that what he was doing didn't fit within the scope of his appointment. What I'm arguing, what Calabrese is arguing, I think the professor's with me on this, is that the scope itself was too broad. This is way too complicated for the low IQ crowd that sits around the table on the Morning Schmo and MSLSD. Go ahead.
Been debunked, and so the president's kind of throwing out...
shut up, you idiot. You don't even know what the hell you're talking about. You don't even know what you're talking about. Hey, Jeremy, what do you make of this? Well, it's all silly. It's not even talking about the right thing. But what do you expect? That's why nobody watches that. I only play clips just to entertain myself, if not you. Well, I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.